Welcome to the live stream, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host today, Bumpy McSquigums. I am joined by a tiny disaster, Cupogoodness, and we are doing our game industry discussion today. Resources for game developers, all sorts of things that Cup has pulled out of his gigantic batch of links and things. He's like, here, boom. There's like 12 links. I'm like, oh my god, man,
The
jeez,
old, the old links and things.
jeez. So
That's my new.
hello,
It's my new dollar. So that's like my new place next to dollar store, connected in the same building. I've rented out links and things,
links and
and they,
things.
and they come in. They're like, "What can I get here?" I'm like, "Links and I guess just links. Not there's no things."
Yes. And slight apologies for our delay. I was having, for absolute no reason, technical issues, but they seem to be solved. So let's
We also have a
move
we
forward.
also have a puppy in my area that is choosing to be a little obstinate. So we'll see how
Hello,
that goes.
Missy.
But hey, Missy, what's up? I'm
Okay,
gonna open restream.
so resources for game developers. What would you like to start with, Senor Cup?
If we don't have anything else to talk about, I really like the Worthy Festival sheet because it's something that I'm currently invested in heavily because of where Cook Serve Forever is in its development phase.
Okay, wait, which one? The Worthy? Really? That is a nightmare to look at. But yes, we can look at it.
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily even look at it, but I mean, you could show it, but like we could just talk about it. It's more talking about it rather than showing it. Although we can show it briefly and explain why the color coding is
Are
going.
we allowed to show it, or are we gonna get like murdered by people?
It's a publicly available. All these resources are publicly available and for developers to take advantage of. Nothing is.
I want a
If any
dark
of
mode
these.
for this.
Okay, so I'm gonna add the links. Restream chat is where I can add the links best. Correct?
Yes,
Is that
it'll
okay?
go
Cool.
to both YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah, and it said check and check. Okay, great.
All right,
So this is just something that I am using a lot, utilizing a lot lately because my game I'm working on with Vertigo Gaming Inc. Cook Serve Forever is currently in its like show and tell phase, or at least show a little bit of show and a little bit of tell. Like we're not going to reveal everything quite yet at this juncture, but we have things to talk about. The game is revealed; it's announced. So we're looking for opportunities for more exposure and excuse me, and a lot of these festivals, as explained in the title, are potentially valuable to indie developers because, like, I think 90% of them have an association with Steam and have that kind of guarantee of guarantee of a Steam feature that can have our recent when we talked about, I think briefly with Kit Fox that Cook Serve Forever was in Kit Fox and Friends festival, and they were celebrating their birthday, and they got a single day front page feature on the specials or discount section or whatever it was on the front page.
I thought there
So
was a roguelike festival coming up like really soon. I don't see it on
right.
here.
That's likely because the deadline's already passed, and when the deadline's passed, they take it off because there's no reason to keep it on.
Okay.
The color coding is green, yellow, and red. If it's not just blank, no color. If there's no color highlight, it means that the festival is not available to submit to at this time. If it's green, it means that it is open for submission. If it's yellow, it means that submission is closing soon, and red, it means it's the day of the deadline. So that's a nice way. I actually just reference it once a week. Like I open up the document, look through it, and see if there's anything new going on that I haven't already covered that is applicable to Cook Serve Forever or any of the other games that I am representing right now. And then I kind of go from there. So one of the ones on there right now that's open that we were considering but we passed on was Save and Sound. That is one that has a Steam feature from last year, 2021 at least. It was their first year, I believe. And that's focused on music and like game audio performances and things of that sort. And so we thought that was a great tie-in with our soundtrack, our music designer Jonathan Gear. But it's a little too early for us this year to do that, based on what they were asking for in the submission form, which you can look at. Usually the submission forms you have to go a little bit on the right to find them, but that's where you can find a lot of them that are open and active. And so you can go through those Google they're most of the time they're just Google submission forms. They can be a little more complicated if it's a bigger, like established show. Like Tokyo Game Show has its own thing, of course. It's not quite just like an easy Google form, and some of them are a little more convoluted than others in terms of submissions. And so you do want to kind of feel that out. And some of the requisites they require for some of the requisites they want from you for submitting to their festival or event, etc. might be a little too more than you want to do, etc. It might be more work than you have. You might not have the resources currently available. They ask for different kinds of cuts of videos, trailers, etc., etc. So a lot of times demos, gameplay cuts. Like at this point, we and with CSF, we're not in a place to start sharing, playable content yet. So all the festivals that say you need to have a demo publicly displayed or even submitted to us to test, we kind of have to pass on at this point. But down the line, we'll be able to submit for those. And a lot of these, like the Save and Sound ones, the Save and Sound one that I was talking about, we'll probably get to next year anyway, since the game CSF is currently slated for 2023. So the likelihood is that we'll just get to do that festival again next year, even though it was something that was on my radar this year. So there's other festivals going on. The Steam Next Fest is mentioned on there. The next upcoming one, I believe the deadline is either done or really close to done for that one. So if you have a game that's coming out fairly soon and you haven't done your one Steam Next Fest, because every game has exactly one Steam Next Fest. That was the deadline. It was already 6 days ago. Yeah, I figured. So
it should look forward to be red or whatever.
Yeah, it looks like it hasn't been updated yet. But like, I don't think it's a view all except for the person who edits it. So
yeah.
Anyway, this is like one of the many resources out. Well, not many, but one of like several resources out there that's basically like run out of the goodness of like a developer's like or some other like industry person's heart, like, and it's or just like they see that there's a value to doing that for the greater industry and or indie corner at least. So we have gotten accepted into one of these already. We have submitted for a couple, at least a few more. And it's just something that I'm personally going to keep my eye on as we keep going and sort of assessing each time. It doesn't mean I'm going to submit for every single thing on there, even if we are applicable for them. It's still, you have to consider a lot of things before you say, okay, we're going to make this commitment. Sometimes there's a public display or event that you have to get to. Again, you can't submit for like Bit Summit or Tokyo Game Show unless you're willing to go there to Japan and represent your game, or at least have someone there to represent your game that's related to the studio. So there's a lot to consider there, but it's just a really nice resource. Oh shoot, this is perfect. I was just about to research festivals. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really nice thing to just, I think, periodically check. Whether it's every week might be a little ad nauseum, but since, like I said, CSF is currently in that phase that we're looking for every little opportunity to get that extra exposure, and in particular, the reason why this document to me is valuable is that it doesn't have a bunch of festivals that don't have Steam features. Like, that would actually bring that down quite a bit and reduce the value, because a lot of these would not probably bring in the same value, or they would be hard pressed to try to equal it compared to a Steam feature. So that is such an important thing. That is a yes/no thing, a column on that festival or on that festival sheet that will tell you if it has a Steam feature or not. There's even anecdotal sort of feedback if the last festival from the year before was beneficial to the developers involved. Not all of that is, of course, like filled out or comprehensive, but there's just some little things that you could take and consider as you're thinking about submitting for various festivals and such like that. So it's also good for released games as well, but it makes a ton of sense for in the pre-release, especially because you don't have to deal with Steam's weird discount rules now, where if you were involved in a bunch of festivals with a post-release game, you would really have to dodge the landmines, so to speak, in terms of lining up your game to be on sale and then be on sale again, et cetera, in different portions. So Oh, no problem, Alex. I really hope you take advantage of it. Like I have, it's been a great resource, and yeah, like that's why I wanted to start it because I think a lot of devs that are like hard pressed to find, um, exposure for their games and ways to drive wish lists. This is a nice way to do it. A lot of times the cost is cheap or even free. A lot of these events are free to submit for. So really nice resource for sure that I refer to often.
Also, he wanted to blind me to start with, and then the next link is also going to blind me. So, because white backgrounds, I don't understand why people still use it. My poor eyeballs. It's okay. Also, you were
What?
the I do
Oh,
remember
because
Mortal
of the
Right.
spreadsheet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do remember Mortal Right. It was Round Toast Studios. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. You had the very cool Discord banner that was animated. Yeah.
How many
Uh,
wish lists would you recommend to get minimum before releasing? It kind of depends. I mean, based on the
like
understanding of like you're trying to get on the new and trending section, the popular
as
upcoming
many as
section,
possible.
obviously the pre-release. You know, anywhere between. I think if you can get to 20,000 before your release, I know that's a lot. It's a big number. But think about dividing it up into like these kind of festivals and what you may be able to do in the in between and other events that like can
Yeah.
drive these kind of numbers up. You're looking for like half a dozen or more of these spikes opportunities, and then not all of them may go as well as you hope, but some of them I think will if they're Steam feature related, and you can try to drive those up through that. But of course, you have to understand that there's the value of a wish list can vary, and you don't want to be misled just because you were in all of these festivals. If your game hasn't been like hardcore play tested and hasn't been sort of approved by that testing unit or a group of people, that could lead to a poor conversion later if it turns out that the gameplay isn't what people thought when they wishlisted the game. So something to keep in mind. How many wish lists would be a good return for a single festival?
That's always going to be kind of difficult, especially like you can't necessarily compare what Cup has experienced recently with kind of the announcement of his game and everything that's coming out because there's already
Yeah,
pre stuff before. This is the first game for Round Toast Studios, so it's going to be a tough one. Do you
yeah,
actually have any idea?
yeah. I mean, like it depends on what's going on. If it's a Steam Next Fest and it goes really well for you and it's your first time doing it, 5,000 would probably be a really nice number to get during a single festival. I think that's probably on the high end for most, but it's also something that some devs breeze by. Of course, it's a hit driven market, so just like in Steam Next Fest, it's almost like a micro version of that, right? So some of the games go into the stratosphere, and many other games just don't reach that level. So it just depends on if your game hits. You want to do your pre-release or your pre-festival homework. Get your demo out ahead of time. Make sure it's ready to go as soon as the festival goes live, and not dealing with potential hiccups that a lot of people have talked about with loading the demo as the festival goes live and with Steam and such. Yeah, 4K to 5K. I say that's exactly where you want to be because you're looking at again trying to get to that lower, not lower, but like mid like five figures, like starting around 20 to 30K. Once you get to there, you should be established enough in terms of finding your way onto the popular upcoming and potentially the top wish listed area. And then that usually will find you translating over to the new and trending section. New and trending is more, how do I describe it? Like it's easier to fall off the new and trending section than it is the popular upcoming and the top wish list section because new games come in, maybe they sell better, maybe your game peaks and then falls faster, and sometimes that will cause removal from the new and trending section. Some games cement themselves on the new and trending section and then are there until they get pushed down on the list, but we have seen both happen. So yeah, I mean, I think you're on the right track. It sounds like. Obviously, best of luck as you keep going forward and look for these other festivals that are not Next Fests, but give you similar kind of pops. Like I think you're on the right track.
And don't forget the very useful if you can time it with maybe just before it goes live on early access because it says you're shooting for early access spring 2022 is to reach out to or have someone like us the indie bros reach out to content creators and that could be another big push for you for wish lists and everything else if people like what you do and they want to talk about it and push it out there it helps so
Yeah, I think like I don't want people to get the impression that the only thing that's worth doing during your pre-release time is these Steam adjacent events or Steam featured events. I just think that you need to have a lot of them involved in addition to any other efforts that you're going to make, like Bumpy points out, like making pushes to content creators. Sort of trying to create your own buzz without the Steam feature is a worthy cause and worth doing, but know that you're going to be hard pressed to match the results of getting that front page.
Yeah, you want to do it in conjunction with, because it'll add to the hype, and then they're like, oh, it's featured on Steam on the front page, and so is talking about it. Then they'll, know.
Or a big thing for us is like, what do we do on the in-between when nothing's going on, when we don't have a feature, when we don't have a festival? Like, how do we drive wish lists, or where or are we going to go into full planning mode again for the next pop? What makes the most sense? It's tough to consider because you're trying to figure out. Okay,
I think at our absolute time ahead. Sorry for the popular upcoming. I think you can do that. You just announced, right? A couple you guys were on it for a little bit.
So. Anecdotally, we got on the popular upcoming section within 3 days of releasing our store page, and we're not releasing until 2023 as in our early access. So you can get on the popular upcoming page pretty quickly. But if you're not on there yet, which by the way, it's you have to kind of depending on your release date, you're going to potentially have to scroll. I just used Control F and put in Cook for us, and that opened up like down to like I think. Several hundred, if not like over 1,000 titles, and then Cook Serve Forever is one of those titles that will climb up that list. So, because of the chronological order of it, and then by the end or near the end of pre-release, that's where we'll start to see a lot of benefit from it as like we get more visibility, thus more impressions and wish lists most likely.
As you build, and then the others fall off when they're no longer upcoming, right? So that list just starts to like tick away.
Generally, you want to go from popular, upcoming, and top wish lists hop right over to new and trending.
Yeah.
And obviously try to find yourself somewhere in the top sellers. If you can hit the top 10, I know that we've worked with some people before, and I know Cook Serve has hit that threshold briefly before and stuff. Usually for indies, it's a brief stay, but it's a really nice thing to get there because you'll get a whole other level of sales while you're on the top 10 bestsellers list. It's like another level above that front page featuring that you'll see from other opportunities like new and trending, daily deals, et cetera, et cetera. So we've spent enough time on this. We have other resources to get to. Let's move forward. But totally one of the like VIP most important documents that I have, in my kind of rotation. Something that I honestly should just probably bookmark tab, or not bookmark, but a pin tab in my browser, but it's just something I add on my task list and say, hey, check this, every week or two and see what has maybe become green and now is open for submission, and see if that's worthy of submitting for it, or see what the hoops that you're supposed to hop through to get a submission in is, and if that's worth doing, and then kind of go from there and decide from there.
Do you want to move to how to market a game?
Yeah, let's talk about a couple. These next two links are kind of in conjunction with each other because they're both for game business or game marketing, like kind of slants for in the industry. It's really about how to run a business, how to succeed financially in the industry is where both. I'll get these links here into Restream here. How to market a game and GameDiscover.co newsletter, which is a newsletter, but you don't have to be subscribed to it to read it, and you don't have to get it as an email. You can just read it online, which is a good. That's a good newsletter. That's how you run a newsletter in 2022, as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, he has levels to that. Game Discover does. They have a premium, pay per month thing where they do some extra breakdowns, Steam analysis, top 10 lists, a lot of what we were just talking about, what's coming up on the popular upcoming, taking a look at the followers they have on Steam, the public information that you can take, and then they kind of extrapolate and try to estimate wish lists based off the followers, and they have a pretty darn good system. I actually talked to this guy personally about CSF's launch, and he nailed the amount of wish lists we had based on the followers that he was publicly able to see. So I was impressed by that. So that's the game discover guy. But how to market a game, Chris Z is also a really awesome guy that he spends a lot of time poring over analytics and data. He had a recent article that was a bit controversial among developers that was talking about the top Steam genres, which was sort of an article that encouraged, pushing towards genres that are highly sought after or kind of desired by Steam users. So some devs took this not the wrong way. They had the right kind of gripes. I think they were like, look, I don't want to be told that I have to make a city builder to get by. That's not something if they're not interested in making a city builder as a development studio. And the article, he actually was in a conversation that I saw where he basically was like, yeah, it's all good. I understand the feedback, and it's something that I'll kind of take and work going forward. So he's someone that I really appreciate because he is an expert, but he's putting stuff out there that is going to be questioned, right? Controversial, potentially, like not necessarily agreed with. And he's still willing to do that and then have the discussions. And if he's wrong or if he feels like he misstepped in some way, he'll admit that and try to grow from that and try to add from that. So I really appreciate that about that site. And beyond that, these are the two sites, How to Market a Game and newsletter.gamediscover.co, that I consistently find good information to intake as a game developer or as someone who runs a development studio. I find those articles to be really, really, really helpful most of the time. Sometimes sometimes it's not applicable, but it's still interesting to learn about some of the other areas that they talk about, AAA, VR. It gives you a lay of the land. It's almost like reading a newspaper and trying to stay kind of up on your general what's going on, even if it's not directly related to what you're doing as a job. It's still related to the industry that you're in, and having knowledge of that, I think, is powerful. That's a good thing to have. So I really like those a lot. They're free, like I said, free to anybody to just kind of catch up and read. How to Market a Game probably does like maybe an article or two a week, but no more. Whereas Game Discover is 2 articles a week on Monday and Wednesday for the free plan, and then the premium plan they do a Friday article as well for like the Plus subscribers that get a little more like statistical breakdowns on the new and trending releases or popular upcoming releases on Steam. So it's almost like for me, it's almost like too much. Like I have like 6 tabs open with backlog articles that I need to catch up with Game Discover because I just don't want to miss one. But he's prolific, and whether that's I think it's a good thing. But for better or worse, I'm just having trouble keeping up. There's a lot of articles and stuff, and they go beyond just Steam. A lot of stuff to talk about Epic Game Store, Switch, Xbox, Game Pass. So they get into a lot of different areas that really support. No problem, Alex. So really good stuff. As far as just the business side, right? Trying to say, how do I take my products and make them financially successful and make my companies financially successful and get to where I'm making more games 2 years from now, 5 years from now, etc. Whew.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that. Anything from you, Tiny Disaster?
No, this is actually really interesting for me. It seems like this should be a resource. A lot of these should be resources we kind of, when we're talking about not knowing where to start, of those people who come in and are like, okay, I made a game, I have no idea what to do. While you're making a game, start here.
Yeah, it's the complicated part of it is that there is some. You have to be aware of the bias a little bit. Sometimes you have to see the successes for what they are, and that it's not just going to be an apples to apples comparison all the time, but things to glean almost all the time is what I look for. It's like, what can I take that they did and maybe not just do it apples to apples, but does it translate to what I could potentially do for my product? So I think those are really important things to consider. Again, people got into a little bit of a discussion about Chris Z's latest article because they felt like he was encouraging developers to, instead of going for the art, to go for where you need to go to get by and make money. And that is definitely a philosophical discussion to have. But within the data that he was providing, they were having They said maybe you could have separated it, right? Given us the hard data, given us the facts that kind of irrefutable, that there's no opinion with it, that's just what it is. And then maybe some of your, kind of what you gleaned below that, what you think, what your perspective brings. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. So we'll move forward.
That's something that's
Go ahead,
that's something a little strange for me, because it's like, hey, these are the most popular things that work on Steam. They're the highest rated genres of games, and if you want to have an easier shot at success, go this route. How dare you? Like, it just seems silly that they would be upset about that. But again, I didn't read the article. I don't know exactly what.
Right, and I don't know if they were upset more that they were saying this falls in line with the narrative that will continue to push niche genres like to the very brink of extinction. Is, I think, where they were coming from. They weren't mad. They're just like kind of rolling their eyes about it, because they're like, if we keep pushing people to the popular genres, then the genres and the games that exist within niche that we know that we've played before and really enjoy, that don't fall under A, B, and C popular genres, will start to really suffer, and they already are to some extent, right? So I think that's where they're coming from. I didn't really phrase it right, Bumpy. Originally, I think when I was kind of discussing the what they were putting up, so I apologize for that, because I think I just provided you not the full table there, like I should have.
I was very confused. I was like, why would that be a problem?
I imagine somebody was heated, but I don't think it was multiple people. I do think multiple people were kind of tired of pushing the narrative that you have to conform to what the popular things stay on Steam, because if you continue to do that, it will, affect the niche departments and make their jobs even harder to do. And eventually, a lot of developers that like really good development studios will quit and not make those games anymore, and will lose that part of that art, that art.
Okay. So kind of a side tangent, because I'm curious, because I've seen some of this happen in publishing as well, within the like indie author groups. You see someone's success, and then a lot of people try to replicate that with similar genre books, and then you get oversaturation in that area. And so, to me, it feels like if everyone's making city builders, it just means there's less competition for the niche stuff. What the developers are doing does not change the player base.
So here's the complicated thing. City builders are actually really hard to make. If you look at how city builders have come out over the last several years, there's not that many of them, and there's certainly not that many that did well. So it's the fact that you actually have to make a city builder that's good. And a lot of people have pointed out, people aren't necessarily looking for the next Sim City. They want to see people do interesting things with city building that is blended with other aspects of gameplay, maybe making it a little bit more of a bite-sized experience, or a more like, rapid fire lightning kind of experience, as opposed to having to, be completely, in the sim form, like the deep simulation form of it. So, there's been a lot of...
The three that I can think of would be like Tropico, it would be SimCity, and it would be Cities Skylines. Are the only three that are like really memorable in my mind. But there's
a conversation to be had about how Cities Skylines went viral because of SimCity's dropping of the ball.
Oh, yeah.
So Cities Skylines, it would always have been probably a pretty good game, but it took advantage of being kind of right up against another city builder release that everybody knew that was established, and it wasn't as good in a lot of people's eyes as City Skylines. So that
and it had
was
launch issues and connectivity issues and all sorts of stuff, if I recall correctly.
Correct. And so City Skylines is actually still like the standard of city builders right now, and that's been out for what, 6-7 years, maybe even more. So I guess that it's kind of complicated, TD, because a lot of these genres that everybody's like, these are the best, it's actually hard to make a good game in those genres, and you can't just gold rush it and expect to hit it big with it and stuff.
What she was saying, if I'm correct, was it shouldn't be a problem if more people are trying to make city builders, for instance, because it's less competition of people making games in the genre that you might want to make your game in.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure how it pushes niche games further out.
Yeah, I don't really see that either.
I think it comes from the narrative, whether it's true or not, or the perspective that the rich get richer in terms of the popular genres that are already promoted heavily on Steam. If more and more development studios say, well, my platformers, well, my Viznobs, well, etc., aren't going to work on this platform, and I really just can't develop them for this platform anymore. In fact, I'm just going to abandon doing them entirely. and just going in this completely different direction.
Yes.
Like that's even possible, by the way. Like a lot of developers aren't just able to flip a switch and become, a different type of genre developer. Like that's not just something that naturally happens. Like for a lot of developers, some developers do fine, but like I think a lot of studios were like, that's not or ever what we've done. It's not something that we've ever done before. Like that kind of development. Or so it's interesting to think about. Again, I'm bringing a lot of this conversation over, almost like just pulling it out secondhanded out of my brain. So I almost want to apologize for laying maybe a shaky bedrock for the discussion. But yeah, let's
questions.
Definitely, and I think it is interesting, and it is a topic to potentially discuss at some point. Maybe even looking at his article and discussing it maybe in full at some point down the line would be worthy for us to do.
Before we jump into the next thing, I think this is there's a lot of reasons for it, but I think this is one of the reasons why, like we'll again go for city builders. You see things that are city builder adjacent now. You see a lot more of that in the form of sim games like House Flipper, and there's a bunch of others. I don't know why my brain just went blank, but like Power Wash Simulator, all these things that you're kind of doing stuff in a city builder, but in a smaller, different way. Because you're still like knocking out walls, and you're doing more of the hands-on in a single house in House Flipper, for instance.
And in some cases, it's almost like having like two different systems in the same game that they could pull off.
It's almost like a sub-genre of the main genre.
Right, because in CSF we're going for the normal quick serve gameplay, right? But there's going to be a visual novel basically built around all that gameplay.
Okay.
So it's almost like merging two genres together. How well we do that is really important to the success of the game. And I think that that's the same idea with like merging like a city building element into a game that maybe isn't a city builder by trade or whatever. Because there's the idea of making it like a mini game. There could be some of the best little mini games in like big games that like are so memorable. I think all of us have our favorite mini games in various like bigger games potentially that we can maybe relate to or recall and say, oh man, that was just so amazing and I love those mini games. But there's also the idea of no, this is actually like a completely new system laid in on top of the already established system that we have that is. Kind of like maybe like Fallout 4 is a good example of that, like where it was like they never had any kind of city building at all in Fallout games, and then suddenly Fallout 4 they laid down a structure. Was it rudimentary comparably to like Ark and other games like that? Yes, but it was something that never been seen before, and it worked naturally within the gameplay of what they were trying to deliver, and that's I think really important. If you're going to implement like a different genre into a game like that like into a game that's not necessarily defined by those kind of things, then you want to make sure it just feels natural, right? Like we talked about in musicals. I think Bumpy have talked about this before. It makes no sense when people just start singing out of nowhere.
Yeah, like it's
why
are they doing that? It takes me out of it.
You're supposed to always build towards like the song, build towards why a person would actually start like why. Even as we suspend our belief, we still have to kind of have there has to be truth in why they would start singing. Otherwise, it it feels false anyway. So okay, let's move on. That's good tangential stuff. But we still have some other links to get through here, which shouldn't take too long comparatively to the first few we talked about. Yeah, so do press kit, or press kit with the parentheses on the end. It is a really nice. It's just a really nice tool if you would like to establish a press kit media page and a professional looking one that's kind of a standard status quo that for like people that like Bumpy, like content creators that see a press kit and click on a link to it will recognize this format that is in press kit pretty quickly because it's pretty. I wouldn't say it's ubiquitous, but it's used by a lot of development studios.
Yeah.
And it's simple, it's free, and there are some other resources out there that I did get a chance to look up that are also simple and free press kit resources that if this doesn't kind of fit, if you look at some of the technical approach of how to put it together and you're like, I don't really like this, there are probably at least a half a dozen other options out there for you, maybe that are a little more module that let you kind of just like plug and play a little bit more as opposed to building it out. But yeah, I think this one is, to me, the best option. And a lot of press kits that aren't even like built through this still use the same format, if you understand what I mean. Like, so it's like it still uses the screens at the bottom, trailer at the bottom, descriptions at the top, resources, links left side, table of contents left side, and then extra links and resources at the bottom and contact information. So it's kind of self-explanatory. If you need a press kit, this is a nice resource to use. You want to get a press kit basically up as soon as you get your Steam page up or your game is announced, so that people can, individuals that want to interact with your game, maybe editors and writers of news sites or content creators that want to utilize different assets or screenshots from your game. You want them obviously to A, find them easily enough, and B, you want them to use the current or correctly labeled shots. So like for CSF, all of our food gameplay mechanics it's all pre-alpha right now, and so we branded those screenshots, and those are the only ones that are publicly available as far as we're concerned anyway. I don't know how else they get out there. So like if they're used, we know that if someone uses an old screenshot a year from now and it's that one, it's going to say pre-alpha footage on it, and that's to us pretty important because you can't necessarily control if people are just going to Google image search your game for something. You could giving them the press kit is a nice step in the right direction though, right? Because it actually discourages them to just go try to like find it on their own because they go, oh great, I have these assets kind of ready made for me. I'll be like right here.
It should always be included when you're reaching out to content creators because I hate having to go look for a logo or whatever to make a thumbnail.
If you're a YouTuber, you have to make a thumbnail. So that's something that like if you're not aware of that for like the YouTube content creators, it's something that you should be aware of. Providing assets really helps them. Takes basically a step away from what they have to do to get a video up, and that's an intelligent thing to do if you would like them to make a video about your game. I'm not saying that they're going to because you do that step, but it can definitely reducing friction. If they like your game, is going to help. So definitely get a press kit. Do presskit.com. And we can talk about what you're supposed to have on a press kit, but we've done that before, and we'll do it again, I'm guessing, at some point. So it's not a whole lot different than your store page, to be honest. So Gamasutra, aka Game Developer, it used to be Gamasutra. I guess it was renamed at some point in the last few years. I don't know when. I don't recall. They are the organizers behind GDC, the Game Developer Conference that is sort of considered. It's considered both the mecca of game development, like shows, and awful. It's both. It's considered both in different areas and stuff. It's expensive to go to. And there's a lot of aspects to it that are very like kind of elitist, very privilegist, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we can get into that some other time. GameDeveloper.com, I don't believe is necessarily a bad entity. They release their own content a lot of the times, just like Gamasutra does. They have their own writers that are industry that provide supposedly content for, of course, developers. Like their audience is supposed to be for industry developers. The thing that I really enjoyed from Gamasutra that I believe they still have, if not, then this sort of reduces my ranking of it as a resource. But they would have a lot of editorials, guest posts from developers, a lot of post-mortems from developers, which are, I think, about as valuable as those sites we were talking about earlier with Game Discover Co. and How to Market a Game. Getting post-mortems from... do you guys know what a post-mortem is? As far as like...
Normally it's after death, but in this case it's after release, after maybe your game is on the downward trail.
I was going to say, we've talked about this before. It's not a term that I don't think you guys are unfamiliar with, but yeah, the term essentially means once the game is out, and generally once you've had some time to get the results of that game, right, the actual sales results, and then actually give yourself some time to unpack all of that. So don't just do a postmortem in the first week or et cetera. I mean, you can, but know that it could be wildly different than the one you do 6 weeks or even like 3 or 4 months down the road. or if it's a game that you continue to work on post launch, it may be something that you delay that postmortem for a while down the road. But either way, it gives a single perspective, a single experience, and a lot of like to the public. Like it just gives us a chance to read over a single experience from a developer, their efforts to get a game out, how it went, what they felt they did right, what they felt they did wrong. And then again, it's one of those things where you can't just say, okay, I'm going to apples to apples take what they said, and that's how it's going to work for me when I do my release. You can't do that, right? But there's things you can glean usually from their release that you go, oh, I didn't realize that, or they ran into something that we need to be prepared for. That kind of stuff comes up a lot of times in the postmortems. So that's where I find the value in that particular site and resource. That's why I put it up on the resources for indies link list that we built out. But the other one I added was the GDC Vault, which is gives you free access to, well, there's some that's, I think, premium content, but I think there's a lot of free tier access to a lot of the talks that have happened over GDC in the last, I don't know, like probably 20 years, 25 years. So this gives you access to a lot of if you're more of a, if you like, learning through, video PowerPoints and people actually talking it out in their experiences versus reading lots of articles. The GDC Vault is definitely like your kind of juice, because I mean there's just a lot of different topics covered. It's really it's not just like Game Discover Co. or how to market a game. It's covering the entire gamut of game development. You'll find talks really covering all sorts of technical stuff, different kinds of game engines, and of course the business, indie type stuff, all that kind of stuff. So there's a ton to dig through there. If you have a topic that you're interested in, you could probably search and browse for that topic and go from there. That's probably a good way to go about it. But if you're just interested in just taking in some knowledge and information and other people's experiences and kind of adding their perspective to your own, then this is a nice slow place to start, especially if you're into videos. All right, we're like rapid fire down the list. We got, let's see, seems like 2 or 3 more here. If I get 2 more links and then kind of another point. So this one's a quick one. Just take the time to set up a Steamworks account. This is if you plan on being a Steam developer at all. I believe it's $100 to set up an account and get an app ID, which an app ID is essentially having the ability to have a Steam page, a product release on that Steam page, et cetera, et cetera. Getting into Steamworks in the back end, it gives you a lot of just resources to be able to just kind of pour over the platform that you're going to be involved with heavily, trying to sell your games on. But also, you'll be connected as a Steam developer, so you'll get emails that Steam developers would receive about upcoming features being added or upcoming promotional opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. That's something that you'll naturally have if you're already releasing a game. But there are some things that they do in the pre-release now that I think it's like, if you're thinking about getting on Steam and you want to kind of get the rhythm of how it goes and how things work, and how you would go about like getting your game, whatever your game you're working on, getting it onto Steam and getting it released on Steam, starting to get into that documentation and always having that ability to look that up because you have a Steamworks account is really, I think, valuable. It's a little privileged because you have to have some money to pick up an account, but if you're going to be a game developer, it's likely you're going to have to get this one at some time or another to release a PC game that has a chance for financial success. So specifically if you're going for a commercial release or one that you're looking to make money on.
All right. Your final one is the itch.io or itch.io's game jams.
Yeah. So this is kind of a different take. It's not something that I'm personally thinking about all the time or taking a look at. But if you're like an up and coming game developer, someone that wants to get into it and just hasn't dipped their toe in it before, game jams have always been a really enjoyable way to sort of challenge yourself. It's kind of like how is it? I'm gonna mess this up. Is it NaNoWriMo? How do you say that for the November? Is that what it is?
Yeah, NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, it's a similar kind of thing that you're challenging yourself to, almost rapidly push through a project so that you do it, like so that you have created something, right? Like whether or not it's your best work or not, that's not really what a game jam is about. It's about like saying I'm gonna sit down and take the theme or whatever this game jam theme is, and I'm gonna make an idea and I'm gonna try to do the best I can. It's almost like it's a group project or even an individual solo project if you do it by yourself. And by the end of it, you probably will have something, whether it's a great game or not. You're going to be really proud of what the time and effort that you put into that. It's going to grow you as a person. And some of the best game design or some of the best selling games on Steam have come from game jam designs, like that like the original designs were from like game jams and fleshed out further, or sometimes not. They were just the same exact thing that was released at the jam. So that's more of a resource for, I think, new developers or people that are like really into the game jam scene, right? And if you're really into the game jam scene, it's likely you already have that resource. But if you're up and coming, new, and you're looking for like what TD was talking about a little bit, which we didn't necessarily cover as much, like community, like people that you can actually like relate to, spend time with, communicate with, and get to know, and sort of feel like kind of get that inclusivity that you're looking for in the industry. Take your anxiety down. Hey, I know a few people. We work together on this kind of stuff, and suddenly you feel that also like addresses things like imposter syndrome, things like that, because you just are like you're in it, you're doing it, you're working with people. It's a really nice thing and stuff. So game jam, that was sort of my answer to TD's like, hey, we got to think about kind of community and stuff. It's like, yeah, if you're new to the industry and you've got some chops in game designer development and programming or wherever it is, and if not, maybe find a partner for game jams, that's someone that can do the work that you can't, and go forward from there.
And of course, the most important resource I'm gonna link right now, and that is the Indie Bros website. You guys can go there, check us out, and get some help from there. I figure we might as well include that in there. I do have something else that I wanted to ask you about, and I did not ask beforehand. So, stuff like WooVit, Keymailer, things of that nature. Should we include stuff like that in, because those are very valuable resources.
So I was going to ask you, from your perspective, Bumpy, like what are the resources that you use that are actually connected to developers that you think they should be aware of? Like, and I think that you just mentioned a couple of them.
Yeah. WooVit.com.
Excuse me.
It's gonna log into my account, whatever. It's fine. It's just a way of basically developers going there and posting their games, and you can offer it to content creators. They'll be able to see content creators that are there that cover things that you want. You can see pending things that people requested, stuff that's been accepted that hasn't been covered yet. These are things that I've done, and then stuff that I've delivered upon. Whole bunch of stuff, multiple pages, and so on and so forth. So this is one of those things where I actually think they're probably the best, though they're not the biggest. So WooVit's really, really good. They do a very good job with everything. All sorts of stuff, could be any kind of weird genre, and then you'll see there's certain things that what has happened. Why am I applicable for every? Oh, I just guess I'm very lucky right now for some reason. Or coming soon. Sorry. So there's things that I'm not going to be able to request directly necessarily. So you take a look. Lurkit is a newer one that's come out, and they can put in thresholds that you need to hit, a minimum of 30,000 subscribers or 50 concurrent viewers on Twitch. So you can really curtail exactly who you don't want versus who you actually want to show up. So it's very, very useful. Oh, my restream thing did not actually list it there.
It didn't go with
on Twitch.
it went through on YouTube.
Okay. So WooVit, Lurkit is a new one. They just recently made it not terrible. I'm sorry. Initially, it was really bad. Just their layout and their design. It was very hard to use. I couldn't figure anything out. Let's see. Let's go here. But they've they've gone through and they've actually added stuff where you're invited, you're archived, what's been ended. So I've only used them a little bit, but they are reaching out constantly, getting new games all the time. So this is another good resource to use. IndieBoost.com is another one. I think they have a free one. Yes, that is correct. Though I don't want to go this route because this is probably how you would actually log in. You could say that you're a developer or whatever, and you could sign in through here, and then I will. Let me see. Give me a minute. I will actually log in on something else.
And you're going to mention Keymailer as well.
Yeah, I will do. I will do Keymailer.
Okay, yeah.
That is the biggest, most established one. I think it was amongst the first that actually did anything. So just be aware of that. So Indie Boost does an interesting thing, as they have two different categories. Yeah, go away. That they utilize here. Nope, I didn't save it. One sec. Keyboard failing me. So they do two different things. Did that just stay? Come on. There it is. All right. They have Catapult as one of the things where you can actually bid on various different things and you can get sponsorship deals and everything else. So they're trying to kind of remove the middleman, or having to have people directly reach out to you to do stuff. And then you can have like auto bids, and now they're starting to add like, hey, you can check to see what other people are bidding, and this is more likely. So they're always improving that, but they tend to hit you with a lot of emails. So and then the other part of it is the actual just Indie Boost, where you can just see all sorts of different types of games just listed, and you can request any one of them. Like, let's say YouTuber's Life, for instance. You can view the page, and then you have all this stuff here, and you'll be able to request the key. I don't know if they have any like specific requirements for you to request. It's just basically turn down or accept. I think they have a free tier. I have heard people use it a few times. So this is definitely one of those ones. Again, ideally, you'll reach a lot of people with stuff like this, but you're going to reach a lot more if you actually have folks like Indie Brothers or some other PR or marketing firm reaching out on your behalf, because we have lists of literally thousands upon thousands. Do you remember where our list is at now, Cup?
I haven't checked it in a while, but I mean, we had it's over 10,000 if you include all of the consoles and genres and things of that sort. Like, of course, we par it down based on your game.
You narrow it down.
But yeah,
location.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Keymailer is the final one. Keymailer.co. And this is the biggest one. They're often sending stuff to you, saying, hey, would you be interested in this? There's different tiers of which you can actually advertise if you want to advertise through them. You can have this like top tier up here where you show on the little spinner. Then you can have the trending ones here. And then, of course, like recent release, coming soon. And then people can always just type like cook, sir. Let's just say cook. Let's say cook. I don't think you guys are in here. Oh, you are. Oh, look at that. I didn't even know that. And then Cook Serve Delicious 3, for instance, is here. So it's available. It's in my library. It even shows cross promo. Wow, they really.
I don't think we added that ourselves though. I think that like they pulled that from Steam.
Okay, so all right, so that is one of the other things too. Hold on, we'll go back here because I think I saw forever. So they shouldn't have a request if. See, they said they weren't going to do this anymore. I'm sorry. There is a little annoyance here. I'm not going to get into it big time, but oftentimes they will say they have a game. I thought they did away with this. They will say they have a game, they don't actually have it. Then they use that as a kind of a tactic. Hey, all these people want your game. Huh?
I don't want to speak for David. He might have done this. I just don't remember talking about it with him. And in addition to that, we have done it in the past for our other Cook Serve games. So it might be something that they just presumed. Hey, you're a developer on Keymailer, so we'll just keep it rolling.
That was the thing that they used to do. But what I've seen lately is they'll say notify me. They have a notify me button if it's going to eventually be available on Keymailer. So
yeah. I'm guessing there might have even been an email from Keymailer to David being like, "Can we put this up?" And he just said, "Yeah," or something like that. And I just didn't hear about it. So I don't know for sure. I don't want to make any sweeping statements one way or the other.
Well, yeah, like I said, so here, like cooking trip, notify me. That means they don't actually have it on there. This was a big issue. They got called out and kind of buried on social media, and they have fixed it. So I'm glad to hear that it probably is legit up here.
Yeah, I recall. It was pretty frustrating originally to hear that they were just it's a thing where it's just like many times developers just being taken advantage of and stuff. So so the other thing I was going to mention is that I think some of these might be like white label setups, like Epic Game Store is. If you're an Epic Game Store content creator partner, if you share a link for a game that is purchased through Epic Game Store, then you can get a little portion of that sale. And I believe that maybe a couple of those that you mentioned, or at least some of their competitors out there do the white label was it referral link type stuff.
There's a few where most of the ones that I've used, if they have a link, it's more to track how much traffic you drive to like the Steam store page, for instance. You don't usually get a kickback. Xsola, I think, is one that actually does do that.
It's a newer thing, and they've been trying to do it they've been trying to establish it for like years now, but it's not something that's really taken off hugely yet. Because a lot of times
don't really want to go and split extra. I'm assuming that's the case.
Well, like for Epic Game Store, they take that out of their cut as opposed to the developer's cut, right? So that's important for the developers to know. Hey, we're bringing this in, but you're not going to get pieced up by that third party. Like we'll take that's out of our 10% or our 30% as opposed to your 90 or 70% based on what store you're working with. So, I think that's basically it. The other thing I wanted to mention, TD. Are there any resources you use for social media, creation, running, things of that sort? I know there's like TweetDeck and things of that sort, other things out there that you may use on the social media side that you could mention.
Yeah, TweetDeck is definitely a big one. A lot of people, social media managers, spend money on tools that will help you pre-schedule a lot of your content, so you're not always on there every day posting 3 times on Twitter or whatever. But a lot of the platforms have stuff built in, specifically Facebook and Twitter. It's just TweetDeck is just tweetdeck.twitter.com or whatever. So they're just already built in, super helpful. In terms of actually making content, Canva is kind of the industry standard, but if you have the Adobe suite, they also have their Spark Post platform, which will help you just like take templates of posts that already look good, specifically for Instagram and Facebook, where you're looking at more visual stuff, but there's definitely stuff for Twitter as well. So you can start with the template and then make it your own, use your colors, turn the theme into something that makes sense for you, but it's great to have a jumping off point instead of starting from scratch with every single post. I'm sure there are more, but those are definitely the ones I come back to time and time again, and communities are a big one as well, but at this point I'm thinking that's probably its own chat at some point because there's a lot there.
Yeah. The last thing I had on my list of notes was just like, if you're not into the game jam type of thing, but you're just a developer and you use a certain engine, Unity, Game Maker, Unreal, etc., or even like a smaller, more custom engine that's out there that only certain folks use or something, look that up. Like Google it, see if there's communities or subreddits, forums out there of folks that are involved in the same game engine using the same thing. A lot of times that's really helpful technical wise because you'll run into bugs or issues that can be solved by finding those discussions already established on the internet. But also you can find a place for yourself, get involved, start talking, start submitting your own feedback and thoughts on things, responding to people, etc.
Answer other people's questions on things you are really familiar with, things you are good at. So that's a great way to get involved in a community, is to give instead of take. Not that there's anything wrong with asking questions. That was going to be my first. If you're not sure how to get involved in there, ask questions, but giving answers is.
And don't inhibit yourself, but also challenge yourself to that you actually are knowledgeable on the subject before responding to it, because it's a very important thing in those communities as well, is that they don't want somebody to just come in and start talking and responding to everybody if you don't really have the value to add to that and stuff. So make sure that when you're responding, that you're responding with worthwhile responses, as opposed to just your instant opinion, that kind of thing. If you're someone who responds quickly, doesn't really like if maybe a more thought out response would work. Take your time with it. come up with it, and obviously engage with the community intelligently so that you become part of it. That's that they welcome you in and stuff. Like it's kind of charisma one, not like a big deal or anything like that, but just something to think about when you get into those communities originally and stuff. Understand that they've been established before your arrival, right? Like and that there's probably a certain cadence and vibe going on there, and that you don't want to just go in there and be too disruptive right off the bat.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for all of our resources that we could throw your way. Definitely look us up, the Indie Brothers, or the indiebros.com, and you'll see a bunch of information there of folks that we have worked with over the years. What's that?
There's a part 2 in this, probably six months down the road or something, once we get new resources and that kind of things come about. Those are a lot of those things are really well established, but some things new things pop up all the time. Like the Worthy Festival sheet, for instance, was not something that was on my radar until a few months ago. So you never know.
Yep. So next week, I believe it's next week. Yep, next week we're going to be doing defining job roles within game development. So that'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all plays out.
And a lot of talk about. Yeah, sorry about that. Just to think about the subject, like a lot of how many people are on your team and how many hats have to be worn.
That's where I was getting kind of where I fell into the topic of looking at, okay, if you have like a massive studio and then how many different job roles there are, and then as you get less and less people, which job roles get specialized into more broad job roles.
It's like you're still a specialist, but you're also going to do like A, B, and C on top of it a lot of times in the situation. It'll be interesting. It'll be a good topic. I have a lot of experience in the department, so it'll be good to talk about.
All right. Well, I guess that'll do it for this week. We'll be back next week at 3 p.m. Eastern, kicking it off once again. Any final thoughts?
No, thanks Alex for tuning in on the chat and really adding to the discussion. Glad to and Missy as well off the top. Yeah, hope everybody enjoyed and looking forward to next week.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye.